Se funziona o no. Seems like we cannot hear her. L'audio del computer si sente?
Morning, everyone.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, Eileen, can you hear us?
I can hear you now. I was feeling very lonely.
Okay, good. So can we start? Sorry, I'm just talking to the people in the room. Can we start the presentation? Okay, so Eileen, you can go.
Okay, thank you, Gat. Oh, I'm just going on there. Today, this session, we're going to focus on beginning to scope out what we're going to do in the last few months to quantify. Oh, I'm going to close the chat, sorry. Quantify the potential impact Gentor can have through the tools that we're looking at developing and understanding of efficiency and resilience in cattle across Europe. Apologise that some of my exemplars, are going to be quite UK focused, but a lot of the results we're going to depend on an input from the rest of the Gentor team and the other work packages. We're hoping we'll be able to sort of summarise similar, maybe not quite as detailed sorts of results, and really highlighting some of the results, particularly from the bookend work packages of work package 1 and 6, about what breeding or tools that will enhance and promote efficiency and resilience could have in making European cattle production systems a viable option for the future. We've all seen this slide before, and for work package leaders, you can probably, some of these slides you'll have seen before. Hopefully Nick presented some of them in yesterday's session as well. A lot of the messages and potential impact from Gentor, where we're talking about breeding for efficiency, is potentially around how efficiently we can produce milk from our dairy cows. And this is looking at the whole life cycle in terms of life cycle analysis as it relates to carbon footprinting, but also I think the key aspect of what we're doing in Gentor is actually really understanding the life cycle of a cow and how that underpins lifetime efficiency. So, you know, the issues about short versus longer term trade-offs, the importance of fertility, health, and longevity as a component. So not paying now for lactation at the expense of future calves on the ground, healthy lactations or rearing of calves, and or being fertile. There's nothing new in these. We are looking primarily focusing on the first two of these options for how genetics and other management tools, genetics is just a way of achieving that, can help bring about positive outcomes for in terms of GHG. And we've been inundated with it for the past 2 weeks in Scotland. I'm kind of a little bit copped 26 out of it, if I'm honest, but really about promoting the fact that we can breed from improved efficiency for the animal. This tends to be focusing on the efficiency of the production, whatever the prime focus of production could be. I'd also like to highlight the fact that production could have multiple outcomes. So you can think of dairy versus pure dairy systems versus dairy systems that promote good dairy beef, and whether that relates to the second of these, which is breeding for improved efficiency of the system, as well as the total life cycle of the animals, her calves, and the herd in itself. And some of the stuff, particularly Jay has been doing, is really looking at some of the trade-offs of this in terms of individual animal efficiency versus longer-term system efficiency. We're not going to be doing too much on the last one. And these are, as I said, are highlighting some of the UK results. And you can, these are quite simple numbers to calculate if we have the right input information and system scenarios that we're looking at. So this is where this is a call to for people to join the group to help quantify in a stakeholder friendly way what the potential results of our work means. So these are just two examples, like breeding for improved efficiency has improved the overall gross efficiency of production in dairy cows in the UK, and over a 10-year period has resulted and continues to show results in a just over 1% drop per annum. This is because we're producing the same or more milk with fewer numbers of animals, and those, if we remember back to the Henning-Steinfeld graph, that makes those bars become more and more efficient. We're breeding for improved efficiency of the system, and work that we've done in the UK has quantified what the poor fertility due to the genetic decline in fertility we saw particularly in the 80s and 90s, now that we've turned it around. We haven't quite yet achieved, I think we estimated this 10 to 15% would be achieved within 10 years of introducing the fertility index. We're currently quantifying the genetic turnaround in the decline in fertility in the UK to be valued at about 12%, and that's after we introduced the fertility index 18 years ago. I'm feeling very old. So we haven't quite reached the heady heights that we said, but this was basically returning it to where fertility was in the 70s versus where it was in the late 90s. We're not directly doing work in Gentor on direct reduction in GHG emissions. I suppose it's for discussion when we get into it about whether we want to cross talk to any other projects to add on some of the findings from their results into what we're seeing for breeding for the first two of those, but we'll get onto that in the discussion. Really, when you also get into the GHG emissions, from our knowledge of being involved in some of those projects in the EU, is they are very much influenced by diet systems and temporal variation. So, you know, I'm not saying we shouldn't work with other projects to share our value. It's a good thing to do, but I suppose we also have to be clear on the caveats of what we're talking about. So I just wanted to highlight some of the results, and this is a brilliant piece of work for Laurence, but you know, in many ways I could imagine if we had a whole other project, we could really integrate this into some of those systems. So this really helps to understand the importance of looking at the genotype and the system that the animals are producing, and looking at that lifetime efficiency, so short-term pay versus long-term losses. Now we need to, obviously we're quite lucky because many of our breeding goals across Europe for dairy and also for beef does contain some of the components that are in this acquisition allocation model, and you could imagine finding ways of simplifying some of the outcomes from Laurence's work that helps us translate that into what this could mean in either changes in the breeding goal or changes in lifetime efficiency versus short-term production efficiency. Harriet is going to be busy looking at this after she's completed some of the weathers work, and working also with taking knowledge from Jay's dairy model about how some of equivalent measures in beef cattle, looking at production efficiency but also proxies for lifetime efficiency, could reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and really sort of ticking and considering completely contrasting systems to a lot of the work that we've done that has focused on dairy, able to look at a wider range of breeds, a wider range of extensive systems, but also to begin to integrate what we're seeing in terms of climate, achieving climate change reductions versus dealing with the impacts of the climate change that we've already imprinted in our future production systems. So this is just to highlight that we can look at a range of traits, and actually in the scenario where we are with beef cattle, there's a lot of potential to really improve on that lifetime efficiency, so that breeding herd side of it with slightly bigger both economic and greenhouse gas benefits from breeding on these maternal rates. In fact, these rates are, if we can get user uptake, are actually higher than we currently can see in dairy cattle, largely because these haven't been under intensive selection. So that there's a lot of genetic low-hanging fruit, at least in the UK scenario, and messages around the importance of locally adapted breeds to the production systems that exist. I won't go into this in too much detail apart from bore you with animations, but really for us, a lot of what we're doing and Harriet's work on really understanding what's happening at the beef herd level is to really quantify those messages that there is value in data-driven approaches, in using detailed and potentially precision tech. So here we're looking at abattoir precision methods, on-farm weighing and alternatives for that, to really achieve some additional incremental benefit. But largely, sometimes when you're starting at a low base of genetic improvement, there's lots we can do to improve it. So just wanted to highlight, this is some old data, and we can update where Vera, I don't know if she's been able to sign on yet, looks after the UK marginal abatement cost curves. We can take some of the figures that we've got, we can derive other figures for equivalent systems, or maybe consider ways of parameterizing them for the other systems and results we're finding in GenTor. And we can talk about how these incremental step changes that we're seeing as results from all the other work packages come out could add to additional benefits on top of what's all routinely available. So in a simple way, and this is very much something we've done to promote a range of the work that Harriet's able to draw on to turn into GenTor messaging around and focusing on beef. So we're showing that breeding for production efficiency, so here by virtue of improved carcass production efficiency has, we've estimated to increase profit potential by 22% over a 10-year period and a 10% reduction in carbon dioxide equivalents. If we add in breeding efficiency, so that's the maternal fertility and longevity side, it doesn't quite double, but not far off that benefit. So these are cumulative benefits. There is an additional value in adding information around more detailed records on feed efficiency. So not as big as the original two of production efficiency and breeding herd efficiency. And potential, particularly in beef, some of these figures are slightly, as I said, slightly lower in dairy because we're already well down the track of achieving some of these benefits. For the potential benefit of adding genomic information. And just wanted to leave in these two last lines because this is where we could come up with an equivalent table to this, working with other projects in Horizon Europe around what might be new plant varieties to reduce the environmental footprint of our ruminant production systems, or information on microbiome. Now, they become a little bit more theoretical, potentially more abstract, potentially something for further down the line, and hence why I've got question marks beside them, because there's quite a lot of caveats on really understanding what's additional versus not on the earlier lines in these ones. Just want to highlight some of the climate change work that we've done, and particularly Jay and Harriet are looking to integrate. The key to this is we're focusing, although this is not really I don't believe the only thing we should be looking at, but it is the biggest indicator of a resilience to climate change in terms of how animals cope under working outside their thermal neutral zone. We've done work prior to GenTor, which we are using to inform particularly Jay's modelling, where we can look at genotype and system interaction, so genotype and environment interaction and how they respond in terms of production efficiency, feed efficiency, in a range of scenarios. And we can see that Harriet has extended this work, and hopefully we'll be able to do, although simpler, but able to highlight equivalent results on beef cattle production using a range of merged national, both public and privately available data sets. And hopefully Nick presented these. I apologize, I couldn't make it yesterday. It's kind of look at change at some of those sort of production efficiency traits from the gradual climate change, but also to begin to put on stories of, because a lot of what we're seeing in terms of the gradual climate change is animals and or management systems might be able to cope with some of the effects of gradual climate change, but it is these extreme events where the rates of impact can increase. We haven't done this statistically, but more exponentially rather than linearly, and really could have, and particularly seeing impacts both of heat waves, but also quite significant impacts of cold days. And this is particularly relevant, as you can imagine, in Scotland, although it's about low teens outside today. And with each of these events becoming more frequent and longer in duration, these could have quite detrimental effects, including breaking points, both at an animal level and a system level, where if we don't start to consider resilience now, our systems might be able to cope with these types of more extreme events. And Jay's work, which many of you will have heard him speak about, and he's finalising some of the papers on now, is beginning to look at what are the potential trade-offs of these climate change scenarios versus where we're going with our breeding goal programme. And this will look at the economic and the GHG, and possibly for one of the first times that I think that we've done it, might be others have done it, integrating it with climate change. So although we won't be able to mirror the depth and complexity of the modelling that Jay has done to look at it in terms of a dairy breeding goal, we do hope to sort of get some simple extrapolations from a beef side as well, and taking on board some of the findings from elsewhere. So I'm still torn on this one, so this is where we're cutting into the discussion. Climate resilience, is it a trait or is it an outcome? A target trait for our breeding goal or an outcome? So Gentor and partners have shown potentially favourable and unfavourable climate impacts on production and functional traits and systems. And I think really, and I think that comes from some of the findings from Work Package 1 about how grass growth might change versus the shorter term shocks. So these have both biological and economic consequences. So,
and to discuss issues towards genomic evaluations of resilience and efficiency. I don't know where that talk comes from. That's
hello? Don't know if you can hear me. I know Harriet's messaging me on my work system. We're nearly finished.
Eileen?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Will I continue?
Yes.
So funny there. Sorry. Oh God, I thought this would be easier. I've done this so many times. So I think one of the things that we want to get in these last few months is really to come up with some clearer guidelines about what breeding for climate resilience might look like and what are the impacts of that. And I know there's a number of ways of looking at resilience that have come out of it, but looking at how that might play out in a goal, and there's various work packages looking at that. So we'll get into that in the discussion. And we certainly have a lot of examples of tools to help breed for and manage a wide range of efficiencies. And I think it's really important that we look, like we did in that beef example, at that feed efficiency versus lifetime efficiency and how that might play out, albeit it might be a bit theoretical at the moment. If possible, and this is for discussion about where beef and dairy tools need to be with real farmer data, and if we need to consider about integrating our breeding goals across these two specialist production systems. I think, although we wouldn't necessarily explore it in the discussion today, but a lot of what we're doing will say at a biological level, understand what are the drivers of lifetime, short and longer term efficiency, and what are the levers we might need to pull to achieve those and not break the entire system. But certainly, and we're seeing this in practice in the UK in terms of footprint, so intensity, that when these new tools are introduced and used by farmers, so we need our messages to help promote uptake by farmers, can have quite significant reductions in our footprint of our main production systems. And if we really go to town on beef from dairy, we could imagine these going up quite a lot higher than what we see now, maybe 2.5% per year. Although we're not doing a lot of we're not doing any real behavior change, I think the key to our outputs that we come up with in today's discussion over the next few months is about making it understandable to the stakeholders that we will be wanting to promote it and uptake it. So, you know, we can get into the nitty gritty about what's the best way to model X, Y, and Z, but it's about getting robust headline messages that helps farmers understand the difference of breeding for short versus longer term breeding goals or introduction of different management tools, and understand some of the key trade-offs. And I know some of the ones that I presented. Even then, I think when I communicate with farmers, they're kind of going, it's far too complicated still. So I don't think these examples are necessarily the best. I think they're the start of how you might message it. And I think it's important to, you know, some of the stuff we are seeing is, particularly when we look at that efficiency at a particular point of time when animals are at the highest level of production output, that the climate that they're experiencing at the time is more challenging to them, and particularly when it gets to extreme. So that although it's a smaller part of the project, at an animal level, that we need to be cognizant of that fact, and particularly and then maybe at the wider system level, whether our future systems can cope with the efficiencies we're proposing to breed into our cattle herds of the future. I think that's me. So I don't know how next, Agat, Nick, we want to manage the discussion. I know Jay has offered to take notes, but I'm guessing it's over to the floor for comments, but most importantly for volunteers, for who's going to help from the work that they're doing, create some of these numbers so we can begin to create some of the messaging about what this might mean for our future production systems. I'm going to end the slideshow. So I don't know whether I can see.
Thank you, Eileen. It would be nice if we could see you.
I turned off my video because I was getting unstable internet, so I didn't want me to be the cause of the technical breakdown, Nick.
Can we have Eileen on the screen rather than me?
Oh, I'd much rather look at you, Nick, all day.
Thank you. Oh, have you turned off, I get? Okay, good. Okay, so the idea of the session was to try and see how we can pull threads together. We discussed this yesterday. We had a very good session, how we pull threads together on the genomics tools. And the idea here was to do the same thing in the ways in which different elements of Gentor can pull together around the issues that concern us with the footprint of the cattle sector, the criticisms that we have of cattle production and what we can do to reduce that. So Eileen has introduced the elements which almost exclusively within work package 6. I don't know, Eileen, if you can elaborate a bit on the other work packages where you see elements, and then we'll follow that up with discussion and contributions from those of you who are involved in the different elements that we could consider. I have one or two up my sleeve, but you go, Eileen.
Yeah, so I must admit, I think some of the tools that are coming from work package 2 about understanding feed efficiency versus lifetime, I know that links somewhat to what Laurence has done in work package 6, but in terms of any new understanding about what feed efficiency looks like from a dairy cow perspective versus lifetime efficiency, and refining some of those numbers I haven't shown on dairy cows would be a good message, particularly that trade-off with longevity. Not quite got my head around how we might do it. I might need to put my head together with Jay and Laurence on the short-term acquisition versus lifetime allocation and how we would incorporate that. There's potential as well in the genomics and the different breeds that will come from work package 5, and there's also going to be modeling of alternative breeding goals and that, so making sure we're lining up on those, and if we can come up with a common currency of presenting those results for the different types of scenarios we're looking at, that would be great. And as I said, it probably needs to be even simpler than that, so I don't think this is beyond us all. We just need to be encouraged to do it. And I think the stuff, I don't know who's there from Ireland, some of Donna's work around cow's own worth and how, it's not just about breeding, but how do we manage the cows of the future? So, taking some of the results from Jay's and Laurence's model and eventually from Harriet's work on beef and saying, well, okay, yeah, the animals might be challenged, but can we do something on a phenotypic or a management level to counteract that? If it was all genetics, we wouldn't need all the non-geneticists in the project. I don't believe genetics are the only solution, and sometimes we might have to manage the genetics that we've already created more effectively.
Okay. Effectively, that was something that came up yesterday, was although not specifically in the context of mitigation, but the ability to better manage at a farm level the animal numbers to avoid having animals raised which effectively are not going to be efficiently used. So animals that leave the herd early, either because they're not managed well or because they are surplus to requirements. So that links very much with work package 5. I agree perfectly that we can begin to also look at those elements within a modeling context, but that is a little bit tricky, because with that implies it's not just giving a tool to farmers, it implies also simulating what happens if you work hard to keep for example, in a dairy herd, to stabilize the number of replacements, to build the different breeding strategies with the crossbreeding and the sex semen and so on. And I know that was discussed yesterday. Morten at least mentioned that. I'm not clear whether we can actually run those sorts of simulations. I don't know whether Morten or Alban can help us with that. Is that in the plans, or is that something which is beyond the plans for what can be done in that task in Work Package 5? If you could come up here to speak, Morten, because then it means that you'll be on camera as well, as opposed to being a mysterious voice in the shadows.
It's after Halloween. We don't need mysterious voices in the shadows.
Regarding crossbreeding, then we have no plans of doing any simulations, but because we would stay within the purebreds, but I don't know whether it's possible to bring it a little bit in. We presented something on this similar crossbred simulations by Ruth Davis yesterday. We could maybe take some, when we have finished your result, Alban, maybe bring some of these levels into similar crossbred and do some simulation using similar crossbred. That will be possible to do, but it has not been in the plan, but we could eventually extend it doing that.
So, am I on? Yes. So it wasn't necessarily to do extra work, because we need to be realistic about the time and the resources left. But I was wondering whether it can feed into a narrative. We talked a lot about, or I talked a lot about these narratives, pulling together the different pieces. If we can show that the tools are there which allow us at the farm level in Work Package 5 for a farmer to be able to make his breeding decisions and culling decisions, if we can show in the work you're doing already and that Laurence has done combined, where the gains can come from different kinds of strategies, then whether we can actually weave together with the stuff that is in Work Package 6, a narrative which suggests how these things might be deployed. And of course, using previous results and previous so on, rather than actually, I mean, obviously, if you want to do an extra piece of simulation, that would be fantastic, but we need to be realistic. So I'm thinking more of it in terms of building the story, saying the bricks are there, rather than actually doing the final joined up piece of work. Do you want to? So Eileen, you haven't seen this, but we have to spray each other every time we hand a microphone over.
Quite right and proper. It's maybe something we should have been doing for years.
Yeah, the thing is that I maybe you should not do that many simulations, but just illustrate what was possible, what is possible. And I think Julia, you was down there. You're the one have used similar cross, but the most. So I think in case we just have the parameters, then to make some example is not a big deal. You can raise your hand if that's okay, Julia. I think and she raised her hand, so it will be possible just to give examples on what it can be used for. Yes, if that's okay.
So yeah, and again, it's about, Laurence's work is brilliant, Jay's work is brilliant, but the level of the detail, we're not going to be able to replicate that, but there is definitely outcomes from those results and then from linked work, maybe not stuff that's been directly done in Gentor, that we just need to get as part of the same narrative. And if we can put it in to some sort of simple quantification, albeit with caveats, that sometimes helps the narrative, but I don't think it is new complex modeling that we're talking about. No.
So pulling together the strands, very much, yes. And I just wanted to bring in Cold, so she hasn't been warned, Lotta. How does this fit with the tasks that you are running in Work Package 6? And perhaps even, because there's nobody here, I don't think, from Work Package 1, because at one time we talked about scenarios that were linked to what they had done. I think we need to not forget that. So I don't know if you can comment.
So one idea was to see from Work Package 1 the effect of high periods of high temperature and drought and heat stress. Now the outcome of or the results in that database is not so detailed, so it is a bit difficult. I think we will rather, and you agree, Stanley, we will rather use the database in Work Package 1 to validate the effects that we model for from drought and heat waves, rather than using the Work Package 1 database as an input for our work. But we will use like the animals selected for increased resilience. So like the article from Christian Bengtsson and Holstein is selected for increased resilience with the Ellen Var, the most extreme scenario there, selection for resilience. These animals can be compared with the current breeding goal animals in environmental LCA and also some social aspects. The difficulty with the social LCA and is that the genetic change that we can do with breeding, when you run them in a social LCA, they are a bit too small to show up in work environment or work accidents or such things. But they will show up in for the economic result. Yeah.
So I think a lot, there's a lot of results in Work Package 1 that we need to fit into the narrative. I think it is important to realize, you know, these cows need to exist on the systems that Work Package 1 have done some beautiful summary work on. And I think there is some nice narratives around the differences in the types of animals as well from Work Package 1 that we need to figure out how to weave that story in. It mightn't integrate, as Lotta said, I don't think it will integrate in the same way, but it is a different narrative stream, and I think it's important that we bring that system level resilience and efficiency in, or else it will feel like we've come at it very much animal centric. And I know a lot of us are animal scientists at heart, but these animals exist within systems.
No, I agree with that. It's a bit like the planting trees to save the world arguments. There are some places where you should plant trees. There are others where you absolutely should not. And that needs to be taken into account obviously in a cow context. So I can see plenty of elements within the project we can pull together. But I did want to open up to the floor. So you're all involved in other projects, some of which are finished, some of which are ongoing, some of which could contribute to this narrative. So I just wanted to hear if there are people out in the audience here who have things they think would easily and logically fit into this kind of, how do we use these breeding tools? How do we use our decision support tools to help us to make cattle production the least heavily environmental footprint as possible? So I don't know if there are people out there who have things that they can, I can see Jonathan is raising a hand, thank you. So come up please, because that way the people on the video get to see you. And the fact you have never put a tie on, but that's
Yeah.
okay.
Thanks, Nick. So there's just thanks, Eileen. It's really cool work, and Jay, and obviously Lotta as well. But there's two particular streams that might. Where do I need to go? Oh no, really? Oh.
Jonathan, you're not this camera shy. Come on now.
Oh, go on. So there's two key things that I think would maybe feed in, Nick, and I think there's a dairy stream and a beef stream. So Eileen, so Hugh Martineau's work that I know you're familiar with, Hugh, obviously did the beef efficiency work. So we're linking up with Hugh with Morrison supply chain work. It's UK data, but it does mean that there's basically, you know, Scottish, Welsh, English data feeding in that's going to all be about emissions intensity work, but it's going to be basically, you know, days to slaughter. And I think the chance potentially to gather breeding decision data that would link in with that is potentially a link. That works live, and it might be a good discussion for us to have to see whether we could, you know, use some of that growing data set to basically link in with, you know, with work package 6. The other piece is some similar dairy work that's been going on. So Global Research Alliance and Dairy Sustainability Framework that Brian Lindsay's coordinated. We presented some of that at COP25 in Madrid, but there's still streams of work that are going on, and the breeding decision work around that is one part of that work, and that's got Kenyan data, Chilean data, and UK data in. So they might be potential links in two different projects that would be certainly, we'd be keen to facilitate discussions to see if that could be a connecting piece anyway, if that's helpful.
Yeah, I'm aware of Hugh's work, and Brian's dropped me an email I owe him a response to. So, but yeah, these are easily done, and Harriet is currently looking at analysing a range of industry, particularly beef data sets that will sort of be able to drive that as well as part of Gentor.
That'd be good. Well, Rafter partners in both those other projects, so it does potentially give a direct link in that might help. So
good stuff.
Cool, thank you.
Anybody else? Julio, you were talking about heat stress effects this morning. Is that something you have data on that can be brought in?
Unfortunately, I have to say that heat stress is getting very popular down here, but we don't have consistent data to be used for this purpose, specific purpose. So it's time probably of several years now. We need to have information also from the local breeds during the test days. Maybe they could make available, but not now. And for this short time that we have to.
Okay, thank you.
I think there is some other projects and other papers that I've looked at, particularly in dairy, heat stress effects from Mediterranean climates of our Holstein Friesian, and we've got the equivalent in more temperate weather. So we could potentially look at what I'm hoping is, well, I know is more extreme effects in the Mediterranean climate than we see in Scotland, but to maybe look at what the modern Holstein, and if there's any breed differences, effective thermoneutral zone is today. Our suggestions is it has narrowed quite significantly, but we're looking at it within the UK only.
Okay. So there's lots of different strands. I think this is a harder ask than pulling together the strands on the genomics work in Gentor, because it spans wider. So obviously, I think that's a piece of work which needs to make full use of the remaining 8 months to build, because it'll mean, you know, starting to sketch out things and pull it together. I mean, we'll come back to that in the final session tomorrow, how we do that. But I think it's also useful, and you can perhaps help us here, because you kind of presented a broad panel of things that are possible, but you've also been closer perhaps than we have to the COP discussions, and where is that dialogue at the moment? Are animals still the great evil in the world, or is that moderated a bit more? Or so kind of what context do we need to pitch our?
Yeah, I think the context from COP is very much around using our resources efficiently. It would be wrong of me to say that the arguments from the animal side won the day. Very much a reduction in livestock-based products in the diet is still one of the messages that comes out of it. Afforestation has got significant targets in the COP decisions. We know about the fuels, but there was a narrative strand around the use of our landscapes. And this is where the stuff from Work Package 1 could help us with our arguments there, because, you know, there will be parts of Europe from which grass or integrated production systems, and that could be either mixed production systems or reuse of waste across different system types. I know that isn't the depth of what's going in all of Work Package 1, will help us with our narrative. So breeding for increased efficiency to achieve economic and environmental benefits is important, but it needs to be in the context of where we should be producing it, and at a second level, which isn't the point of Gentoo at all, who should be consuming it and at what frequency. So there is that narrative, but as everybody heard, COP was very much about getting the coal agreements in place and the change to alternative fuels.
Okay, thank you. So I think we're coming to the end of this discussion, unless there are burning questions, points of clarification. I can see Richard was lining himself up.
The only thing is, Nick, I need people to volunteer. So I've had Jonathan, Lotta, and Jay and speak to Jay and Harriet. But what we'll aim to do is try and have a meeting either just before Christmas, probably just after Christmas, to allow everyone to cogitate on their results and, you know, do a sort of a 3-month sprint of work to put this narrative together so we can present and discuss it at the sort of final 3 or 4 months of the project.
Yeah. So that's a very clear message. If you want to be involved in helping to pull together that narrative, then please get in touch with Eileen or with myself, preferably both. Otherwise, we will come and suggest volunteers, as usually is the case. But the idea would be this is something which will feed directly into the final report. So Agat mentioned yesterday, the final reporting is in 2 parts. There's the part which is reporting the last period, which is, you all know that now, you've all done that for the last 3 reporting periods. And then there is the final report, which is what has the project achieved as a whole. And we don't intend to go through work package by work package saying this was done, this task was ticked, da, 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 da. What we intend to do is kind of take an orthogonal view of that and say, these are the big themes that we promised at the beginning of the project. How did we manage on those? So, and you can see clearly from this meeting, the way we've structured these sessions is to try and already begin to make that shift so that we can pull things together as a whole across the different work packages. The people who are going to read the report don't care about the work packages. They care about what the whole thing produced. And that's the shift we're looking for. Sorry, Richard, please. But do come up and then we can actually have you as a guest star on a Gentoo video.
Thank you, yeah. I'll go in that corner, I think.
No, you have to come here.
Hi, Eileen. Yeah, just a clarification really on your figures on beef. I think you're looking at beef breed, and if my understanding was right, that one of your major gains on CO2 was choosing the right breed, and that was based on the time to slaughter. Yeah, have those figures actually been looked at in per kilogram of beef produced, and is there a difference? And also, one of the messages from the conference seemed to be as far as carbon, the integration of the beef into the dairy is one of the efficiencies you can get. And also, we heard from Dona a little bit yesterday about the effect on calving ease, etc., on the dairy herd. So also, as far as the optimization of process, factoring the calving ease of the breeds into the efficiency on the dairy side as an integration.
Yeah, no, so the results I presented was age at first calving, but we have looked at age at slaughter as well. So both have basically an equal role in achieving the efficiency. And as I'm sure if Donna is on the line, he'll say there's probably as much variation, if not more variation within a breed as across breeds. Where the different breeds might help is their suitability for the different production systems you're placing them in, rather than, you know, I'm now advocating breed A versus breed B. I don't think that's where we're at. So the results I didn't put up, we've looked at some really interesting results around calving ease, but also calf vigor and likelihood to survive, to weaning and to being a productive animal. So, you know, anything, and Laurence's work on the dairy side has sort of showed how, you know, this looks from a modeling perspective, but anything that introduces waste into the system, no matter how you define your emissions intensity, be it by per breeding animal, per hectare, or per kilogram of product produced, is going to make your numerator bigger. So yes, they are all part of it, and we've done all those calculations about what they're worth in UK beef and dairy systems, so we can certainly use them to our effect. And the more we understand, the more we can extrapolate what the carbon savings would be from these different efficiency and resilience. The beef and the dairy one, it's not a prime objective of this project. I think we do need to be responsible and come up with some narrative stream around that. It's a particularly hard stream for us to take forward in the UK, I would argue, but perhaps also in Ireland. I don't know if it is the same on continental Europe, but particularly in the UK and Ireland, the concept of the suckler beef herd is something that's cherished and is important and seen as important. So the concept of the dairy having a bigger influence in the beef production chain is a harder narrative. So I really would welcome help on that one, so I don't get blamed for suggesting Scottish research says we don't need a suckler herd anymore. That would be not what I would say today. So yeah, other people from Europe, please help me with that, writing that narrative.
You go.
I'll just say thank you, Eileen.
Okay. No, I think that's an issue we mustn't duck. The beef dairy balance, and because I know it's very topical, and we've all heard we actually could produce all our beef from dairy crossing, and we don't need the suckler herds, which obviously is a difficult message in some countries. There is some work. So Philippe Faverdin did some work looking at that balance, and I think we can tap into some of that. And I think he also looked across a range of different countries. So there's a paper in the way out, a review paper looking at that. So again, we can tap into that. I don't remember if that's badged Gentor, that paper. I hope so, but so well, there is context.
Yeah, I think we could. I think it's an important one for us to not look away from. I think a lot of people are facing pressures not to look at it at a local level, and if we can't look at it at a European project, I'm kind of sad. So I can blame Philippe, you see, rather than.
Am I right in thinking that there is a law or a guideline in Denmark about Jersey, the use of sex semen in Jersey? Has that happened? That there was talk about only using sex semen in Jersey to avoid unwanted calves?
There's no law of using sex semen, but there'll be a law from 1st of January here that you're not allowed to slaughter day-old bull calves. So that's, in fact, is a very, very hard pressure on use of sex semen. And you could see this already in April this year, that there was a high, the level really increased for use of sex semen in Jersey to avoid these bull calves. So effectively, the law towards sex semen, but it is a law not slaughtering day-old calves.
Yeah, so a lot of our assurance schemes in the UK, you have to have can't remember if it's 16 weeks.
Stop, Eileen, there's someone talking.
She can't. Wait, because Eileen can't hear you.
Sorry.
Oh, so yeah, I was working with this topic in the spring. It is from the Arla Foods that's decided to say to all their farmers, you're not allowed to kill bull calves right after birth from 1st of January this year. So of course, this forced a lot of their Jersey farmers, or even though also Holsteins and crossbred cows, because we see some with Salmonella status 2, they're forced to not kill the bull calves right out after birth. And we've seen that Tisa and Naturmilk has done the same for 4 or 5 years, maybe, and more than, yeah. So it's not a regulation from the Danish government, it's by the industry itself.
But it's clear that question is growing, and we need to do what we can to tackle it in the narrative. Yep. Okay, so if nobody has anything else to say at this stage, the message is clear. We need to take this forward, and Eileen will lead that. Am I right, Eileen?
Ably assisted by Jay and Harriet, and they'll be doing a lot of the work, hopefully.
And a small committee of people from the different work packages who can help take this forward. Yes. Okay. So we are a little bit ahead of time, to say the least. And I understand we cannot go to lunch early for logistic reasons. Yep. So what we want to do is to briefly show you the latest Gentor video. So you maybe remember that we had the video which was purely an animation. We've gone a step further. We've showcased some of our real live Gentor people. And then there's a message, I believe, from about an upcoming event, that the PLF workshop, which Jonathan will talk about. And then you're free to continue networking as you do so well. Yeah, so these are just so Rich is aware, these are the videos that we produce aimed very much more at general public and the farmers as well. And I'm not sure if it's on the way. Okay.
With increasing pressures from society, it's getting harder as a cattle farmer to farm sustainably and make a good living.
Climate change, an ever-increasing demand for meat and milk, and the push for affordable and certified high-quality food products are just a few examples of the challenges you face as a cattle farmer.
To take on these challenges, you have to optimize food production while improving animal health and welfare, and farm in a sustainable and environmentally friendly way. This means that you have to work with the most resilient and efficient animals, with the right emphasis on dairy and beef production, according to your local production environment. However, it's difficult to identify which animals to keep and breed.
This is Gentor, a project of 21 companies and organizations developing innovative genome-enabled selection and management tools for dairy and beef cattle. These tools will allow you to select the best cows with the right balance of resilience and efficiency in different and changing environments for your farming systems.
Our easy-to-use decision support tools will also create new market opportunities, strengthen competitiveness and growth, and help reduce the environmental impact of livestock farming.
You will be able to rank your cows according to their expected lifetime resilience and efficiency, but tailored to your local environment. This way, you'll quickly and accurately be able to select the best animals to breed, to renew the herd whilst crossbreeding the poorer cows. This means you can improve profitability whilst farming in an environmentally sensitive way.
We achieve this by incorporating environmental, genetic, and current herd performance into the tools. For example, here in the Netherlands, we use lifetime data of animals recorded on farms in both conventional and innovative methods, such as sensors and drones. And with the data we collected, we can better understand the cow's performance and behavior and link this to herd genetic data.
The Gentor decision support tools will offer opportunities to make your herd more resilient and efficient, optimize your breeding plans, and enhance the use of crossbreeding while reducing your carbon footprint and increasing your profits. Herd management has never been easier. For more information, please go to www.gentor.eu. If you wear glasses or...
First of all, thank you to everyone who put that together. And the second point is, as you saw, that was subtitled, and we can produce the subtitles in as many languages as you would like. You just need to show your interest and we will help with that. And we can also produce the video with a voiceover in the appropriate language for a modest fee. So if you think in your country it will be useful to have this in your language and to disseminate it wherever you like, I think we're talking about 200 or 300 euros to get a voiceover. Yeah, so there are options there, and you probably all have a little bit of budget you didn't use for traveling under COVID. So you can have that video in your own language, and then you can diffuse it. Diffuse, it's not an English word anyway. Diffuse it in all the different places you want. So through the advisory networks and so on and so forth. So please take that opportunity, discuss with Noali, and we can make that happen. We can have Gentor in multi-voices. And now a little advert for a Gentor event in a distinctive voice that we all know and love. Jonathan.
I'll email everybody who can tell them. So it's good. Thank you, Agat. So thanks, Nick. Yeah, it is a shameless plug for next week, but it is very much a Gentor event. And as I mentioned earlier on, thank you.